The warp storm fall. The sky above Asgard shimmered with golden light as Thor soared across the Bifrost, lightning trailing behind him like the tail of a comet. Mjolnir spun in his grip, the air crackling with raw energy. Then, reality tore open. A silent scream ripped through the cosmos as a violent warp rift yawned wide before him. Thor had no time to react. The Bifrost shattered like glass. He was sucked into the maelstrom, tumbling through madness and shadow, past visions of twisted creatures and galaxies aflame. Then, blackness. He awoke on metal. Cold. Bloody. The battlefield stretched endlessly, rusted metal plating beneath his body, the sky above smeared with red clouds and broken moons. Space Marines, giants in shattered armor, lay dead beside alien husks. Their weapons, charred and melted, were no use to him. He rose, staggering. Then came the laughter. "Oi. Look at this one." Thor turned, his vision still swimming. A horde of orcs, massive and grotesque, lumbered from the wreckage. Their teeth were yellow daggers, their eyes glowing with crude excitement. One of them was dragging a dead Eldari like a rag doll. Another held up a giant cleaver slick with blood. "Dis humie's shiny. Maybe he's one of dem chaos boys. Ha, I say we bash him and see what leaks." Thor lifted Mjolnir, but it was gone. Before he could summon it back, a heavy iron net slammed down over him. Orc clamps dug into his arms. Chains followed. Then came the pain, a blunt strike to the skull that dropped the thunder god to one knee. He growled, teeth clenched. "I am Thor, son of Odin. Unhand me." The orcs only laughed louder. "He talks funny. We gonna have fun with this one." A war boss, towering over the rest, stepped forward, his cybernetic arms sparking and twitching. "Take him to the mech boy. Maybe he can fix him. Or break I'm proper." As they dragged Thor away, he caught a glimpse of the world he had landed in. Broken cities. Gothic towers of steel and bone. Machine cults, looming statues of the god emperor, skies filled with smoke and flame. This was no Earth, no Midgard, no realm he recognized. This was the far future, grim and hopeless. Even gods were nothing here. As the gates of the orc fortress slammed behind him, Thor's mind burned with questions. Where was Mjolnir? What realm was this? And how many of these beasts must he kill before he could break free? Above him, the warp still screamed, and something was watching. Gladiator of the WAAAGH. Chains rattled. Thunder growled. But Thor could not hear it anymore, not in this place. He was shoved into a crude iron cell, walls lined with bones and broken weapons. Mjolnir was gone. His godly power was dulled, not dead, but suppressed, as if the warp itself mocked him. His arms were chained to a slab, runes burned into the manacles. They weren't Asgardian. They were mechanical. Xeno. Cruel. Days passed. Or hours. He couldn't tell. Orcs shoved strange gruel into his mouth, grinning like children watching a toy squirm. Then the war boss came again. "Time to fight, shiny boy." The arena stank of blood, oil, and madness. Thor was dragged into the center by two massive orc knobs, each twice his size. The crowd howled from the rusted bleachers above, banging metal drums and screaming for war. Some waved banners with jagged glyphs. Others tossed body parts into the pit. Thor stood in the dirt, shirtless, bruised, but proud. He still had the fire of Asgard in his eyes. A Gretchen announcer, riding a squig, squealed through a speaker. "Tonight. De Humi God versus Big Zaga, de Headsplitta." The gates opposite him flew open. Out came a monster. Taller than a dreadnought. covered in metal plates. Spikes. His fists were chainsaws. His tusks were iron. The orcs roared in joy. Big Zaga bellowed, "Me smash." Thor cracked his neck. "Then come." Zaga charged like a green freight train. Thor rolled under the first swing, barely dodging the roaring saws. He kicked Zaga's knee, felt nothing but steel. The crowd jeered. Used a power, puny god. He couldn't. Whatever world this was, it was choking his thunder. The warp-scarred atmosphere interfered with his divine link. But the warrior within remained. He fought dirty. He fought hard. He grabbed a broken spear from the ground, jammed it into Zaga's arm joint. The beast howled. Thor leapt onto his back and twisted the spear deeper. Zaga slammed him into the wall. Bones cracked. Blood spilled. Thor staggered to his feet, gasping. Zaga rushed again, this time slower. Wounded. Thor caught a glimpse of a jagged metal spike nearby. Without hesitation, he dashed, grabbed it, spun, and plunged it into Zaga's neck. Green ichor sprayed across the pit. The orc giant groaned, stumbled, then collapsed. Silence. Then the arena erupted. Dahumi won. "We need a bigger orc next time." Thor dropped to one knee, panting. His wrists still bled from the chains. But for now, he had survived. As he was dragged back to his cell, he looked up. The clouds parted just for a second. A single blue spark danced in the sky. Mjolnir was still looking for him. And it was angry. Rise of the Thunder Slave. Pain was now Thor's oldest companion. Every day, they dragged him from his cell, bruised, bleeding, hungry, and threw him into the arena to fight for their entertainment. Orcs. Squigs. Cyborgs. Mutants. Even a Cruthound pack once. And he beat them all. But each time, he felt himself slipping further away from the god of thunder he once was, and becoming just a tool of destruction for the orcs' brutal games. They gave him a new name. Thunda Slave. It echoed through the rusted walls of the arena every time he entered. Thundier. 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 Thor's fists were wrapped in spiked chains now. His hair was matted with sweat and grime. His eyes, once filled with divine light, now held the cold focus of survival. But deep inside, the storm still raged. One night, he was chained in the center of the pit after a particularly savage fight. The orcs cheered wildly, too wildly. Something was off. Then the gates opened, and silence fell. A group of robed figures entered. Their faces were masked. Their movements, mechanical. They carried scrolls, strange devices, and one of them held a hammer. Not Mjolnir. But close. Close enough to make Thor's heart lurch. The lead figure stepped forward. "The Inquisition has come to claim the anomaly." The warboss laughed. "He's our toy now, Meatbrain." The Inquisitor didn't flinch. "You have no idea what you're holding. This slave may be a missing fragment of an old one, or worse." Thor raised his eyes. For the first time in weeks, hope stirred. But the orcs didn't care for politics. "You want IM? Fight for IM." A deal was struck. A final battle. If Thor survived this fight, he would belong to the Inquisition. If he died, the orcs got to dissect him and keep his bones as trophies. Simple terms. Insane terms. Perfect for the 41st millennium. The next morning, the arena crowd was 10 times larger. Grots, mechboys, warbosses from other tribes. Even a weird boy was there, frothing at the mouth, claiming he saw lightning in his dreams. Thor stood alone. The gate across from him groaned open. Out came a monstrosity. An orc warboss riding a deft dread, a walking tank of buzzsaws, missiles, and teeth. Name SmashAKLAW, he roared. Time for the final chop. The crowd went wild. Thor exhaled slowly, and whispered. Let the storm return to me. The battle began with fire. Missiles rained down. Thor rolled, leapt, kicked. He jumped onto Smasherclaw's arm, wrapped the chain around one cannon, and yanked it off. Claw roared, grabbed him, and slammed him to the ground. Thor's vision blurred. Then, thunder cracked above. A small flash. The storm was listening. He reached toward the sky. The orcs laughed. Then the clouds twisted. A bolt of lightning struck the arena. And in its wake, stood Thor, glowing with raw, divine fury. God of thunder, God of war. The arena fell silent. Where once stood a battered slave now stood a living tempest, Thor, reborn. Lightning crackled along his arms, dancing between his fingers like eager spirits. His eyes shone like dying stars, and every breath he took made the orcs step back in primitive fear. Smasherclaw growled. Tricks. Zoggin, weird boys. But it wasn't a trick. It was divine wrath, and it had come home. The warboss charged, chainsaws spinning, rockets roaring. Thor didn't flinch. With a flick of his hand, a lightning arc burst from his palm, melting a cannon mid-fire. He leapt into the air, high, godlike, fearless, and slammed into the Death Dread's chest, punching straight through steel and bone. Smasherclaw screamed. The crowd screamed louder. Then, boom. The dread exploded in a fireball of oil, metal, and orc guts. Thor stood in the flames, untouched, crackling with power. Above the arena, the clouds churned. The warp trembled. For the first time in decades, the orcs felt something they didn't understand. Not fear. Reverence. He's da Thunda God, a grot whispered. Another fell to his knees. Then dozens. The orcs, savage as they were, couldn't ignore what they saw. This wasn't just another Xeno. This was a god of war. And gods demanded war. But not all bowed. The Inquisition agents stood at the edge, stunned. Their scanners blared red warnings, power readings off the scale, warp fluctuations rising. He's breaking reality, one whispered. No, the leader said grimly. He's becoming it. Thor raised his gaze. Lightning formed a crown above his head. You took me, he said. Chained me. Broke me. Now you want to claim me again. The Inquisitor stepped forward. You don't belong here. Thor laughed, a sound like thunder over oceans. Neither do you. He turned to the sky. Let Asgard hear me. Let the 9 realms know. I am still their son. And the skies answered. A dimensional crack shimmered above, a glimmer of the Bifrost, faint but real. Hope surged. But then, the sky shattered. The warp answered too. A green tide of WAAAGH. Energy surged around the arena, and from the shadows came a roar 10 times louder than any before. From the depths emerged a beast larger than any war boss, stitched from orc psyker dreams and warp-born nightmares. I am Geoarcane Mork's voice, it bellowed. Even Thor paused. The real war had begun. Thunder against the WAAAGH. The ground trembled. The sky, already broken, now boiled with green lightning and warp fire. The arena, once filled with roaring orcs, had gone silent. Every eye now turned toward the monstrosity born of pure WAAAGH. Energy, a colossus that called itself the voice of Gork and Mork. Thor, his body glowing with celestial light, stared into the storm. So, even gods have gods in this universe. The creature moved like a walking catastrophe, part flesh, part armor, all rage. Every step warped reality, every roar summoned more orc energy from the immaterium. It was a living belief weapon, born from the collective faith of millions of orcs. And it wanted to crush Thor. The thunder god planted his feet. He had no hammer. No allies. Just fury. Come then, beast, he growled, lightning dancing across his chest. Let's see if your gods can silence mine. They collided with a shockwave that flattened mountains. Thor's fist shattered sound. The WAAAGH. Titan countered with a wave of psychic fire that would have turned a space marine to dust. Thor endured, his Asgardian blood burning with power. He summoned lightning from the sky, but the Titan ate it. The WAAAGH was belief. Power given form through madness. It couldn't be reasoned with. It could only be outshouted. You ain't a god here, Pinkskin, it snarled. Dis is WAAAGH world. Then Thor made the sky scream. He struck the ground, channeling Asgard itself. Storms cracked open reality. Thunder rumbled through dimensions. And from the bifrost tear above, a shape descended. Not Mjolnir, but Stormbreaker. Forged in a dying star, it answered his call across worlds. The axe landed in his hand with a deafening boom. The orcs gasped. Even the Titan hesitated. Thor twirled the axe once. Wrong, he said. Now this is a god's world. He charged. Stormbreaker sliced through the WAAAGH. Beasts hide. Green fire bled like magma. They battled across the ruins of the arena, across war-blasted plains, until only the Colossus and the Thunder God remained. Finally, Thor struck the final blow. A full-powered swing of Stormbreaker. Through chest, through heart, through belief itself. The voice of Gork and Mork screamed and exploded in a spiral of green fire and psychic backlash. Silence fell. Thor dropped to one knee, breathing heavy. The orcs didn't jeer. Didn't attack. They knelt. One by one. The green tide bowed before the god of thunder. Not out of submission, but out of pure, unfiltered worship. Thor had become what no human, no Xeno, no demon had ever achieved in orc eyes. The ultimate warrior. The perfect WAAAGH. And in the Grimdark of the 41st millennium, that meant everything. Epilogue. The Bifrost shimmered above. Asgard called. Thor looked back once, at his new subjects, chanting his name. Thor. 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 He sighed. Tell Odin I may be late. I've got a WAAAGH to lead. Fade to black.